Without the Mississippi, there is no America. Anyone who hopes to understand America needs to understand the relationship of the Mississippi to its country and people. 41% of all the water flowing from the country to the oceans flows through the water basin of the Mississippi. More than half of all the states are connected to this great system of waterways. The Mississippi is one of the great water highways of the earth. Barges carry food and energy to the rest of the world. More than half the country's corn and soybeans are shipped on that river. In December 1941, when Churchill learned that Roosevelt would ask Congress to declare war on Japan, he understood that the power of the Mississippi was on England's side and that Germany would have no chance to win World War II. Before going to bed, Churchill sang, "Roll on, you mighty river," and for the first time in years, he said that he went to bed and slept the sleep of the saved. The Book of Mormon tells us of two great geographical features. One is the city of Zarahemla, and the other, connecting to the first, is the river Sidon. After we have discovered the locations of these two features, we can begin to put together the geography of the Book of Mormon. There is no geography for that book without the location of Zarahemla. There is no geography for Zarahemla without the river Sidon. 600 years ago, the first European settlers came to the eastern shores of America. It took them 100 years before they were making maps of the Mississippi. These maps improved over time. The French explorers made the first maps. After the French and Indian Wars of the 18th century, the English began to make their own maps. The new country of America made history's largest land purchase, and by 1804 Lewis and Clark were trying to understand the mighty waterways of the country's interior. These early maps identified the difficulties of the Des Moines Rapids. By the mid-19th century, the United States Congress allocated large sums of money to understand how engineers could tame the rapids of the upper Mississippi. The rapids went over 11 miles of limestone ledge that would at low water tear out the bottoms of riverboats. For nearly 200 years people have had the Book of Mormon. Anyone who reads that book soon recognizes that Zarahemla is the key to the book's physical truth. You would think that the best place to start would be the obvious place. There is nothing in America's geography that is more important than the Mississippi. It does not require too much thinking to come to a simple geographical model for the book. How about looking at the Mississippi as the river Sidon? Tens of thousands of people have looked at the question. Tens of millions of dollars have been spent researching the problem. Unfortunately, less than 1% of the research has considered the Mississippi as a possibility for the river Sidon. The overwhelming amount of attention has gone to other areas. The Church's policy confirms that the Book of Mormon is real history, and it takes a neutral position with respect to the location of that history. The truth of the Book of Mormon comes not just from the Spirit, but it will also come from the earth. The ancient promise is that truth shall come down from heaven, and the truth shall spring out of the earth. The coming forth of the Book of Mormon has two parts: 1, the angel from on high, and 2, the gold plates buried in the lonely hill. It is the joining of these two worlds that will establish the truth of the book. The approach is really simple. Start with the most important physical feature of North America. That would be the Mississippi River. Find that place on that river for Zarahemla. Does it not make sense to look for a place where the flow of water and traffic are most affected by the rock formations that create the rapids? Once that place is identified, then we will take a literal view of the Doctrine and Covenants, section 125, and where God revealed to Joseph Smith the location of Zarahemla. Once Zarahemla is located, Then make a very tight examination of the terrain and waterways to determine how the details in the Book of Mormon fit into the terrain of an area of 8 miles by 8 miles. In this space of 64 square miles, there are the land movements and water crossings of large armies that were involved at harvest time in the Battle of Zarahemla in 87 BC. Mormon made sure to give us the details that Alma wrote concerning this battle. Alma was an eyewitness. There is no other battle or event in the Book of Mormon that gives us the land movements and river crossings of the armies. These details are so clear that it is possible to say that there is no other place in the world that would satisfy the geographical features of the battlefield. Over a period of 36 hours and in a space of 64 square miles, it is possible to establish at least 9 separate locations and events that were associated with the battle. The conclusion is clear. Zarahemla is located across the river from Nauvoo at the very place that God revealed to Joseph Smith. Now let's do the sensible thing. Let's take the tools of modern science to scan thousands of acres of cornfields in Lee County, Iowa. We will for sure see the ancient fire pits on the digital maps, and anyone who cares to look will see the unveiling of Zarahemla. Go to www.zarahemla.site to make your donation to the great work that is being done in this generation.